There we are. This is our monthly free webinar for our members, and it's my pleasure to introduce James Dyer, who is one of our partners. He is from Floworks Management. He's the managing director, and he's going to talk to you today about ESG reporting and how office managers can support your businesses, your companies, in ensuring that you've got ESG in mind, but also potentially gaining more clients with certifications, etc. So I'm going to hand over to James and keep letting people in because there's a few more people coming in, but hopefully you'll find this really useful. So thank you, James. Over to you.
Great, thank you, Hannah. Hello, everybody. Nice to meet you all. As Hannah said, it's James Dyer from Floworks Management. My company specialises in ESG management. We provide a fully managed service in terms of sustainability and ESG. So today I'm just going to talk a little bit about ESG reporting, why it's becoming more and more important, and what you can do, some practical tips around the office for office managers, and then just a little bit at the end about two different certifications, the two which I think are the best, one which is one that we deliver ourselves, and then a little bit about B Corp, which you may have heard of, as it's also gaining quite a lot of popularity at the moment. So to start off with then, what is ESG? I'm sure all of you know that it's environmental, social, and governance. Interestingly, Investopedia defines it as a set of standards around companies' behavior, which is used by socially conscious investors to screen potential investments. So it really is becoming sort of at the forefront of what people are looking for when in terms of getting equity into companies, making socially conscious investments, but also if you're in businesses where you have to tender for work, for projects, it's becoming more and more important. It has a much heavier weighting in terms of scoring for tenders. So the three pillars of ESG, environmental, of course, is the big one. When everybody thinks about sustainability, environmental is usually the first thing that you think of, but it's also about your social impact as a business, so paying fair wages, equal opportunities, diversity in the workplace, all those kind of things, well-being, and then governance. So governance is about how you manage your business in a fair and ethical way, including complete transparency. It's essentially, in a nutshell, how do we make our businesses better and have a better, more positive impact? In terms of environment, obviously, I'm sure I don't want to do too much of the fear mongering because I don't really think that's very productive, but I'm sure you've all heard of your environmental issues that we're facing, the planetary boundaries that we're crossing year on year. That's becoming more of a pressing challenge. So the environmental aspect of this is becoming more and more important. And the whole thing is based on a framework which is set up by the GRI, which is an international standards agency which helped to develop the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And these are 17 goals which outline what companies should be working towards in terms of their ESG. So this is really the opposite of greenwashing as well. So I want to just address that first, in that there's a lot of things out there which companies are doing to us, which we all know about greenwashing, I'm sure. But what I want to talk about today is how you can manage your ESG, which is in the most sort of accessible, easy to understand and affordable way, which cuts out all the greenwashing. Because some of the things that you can pay for out there, whether it be expensive consultants or certifications, quite often you're paying for some very good marketing, which is kind of well, it's not counterproductive, but it's against what ESG stands for, which is all about integrity, honesty, and transparency. In terms of the consumer market, it's becoming more and more important. So millennials and Gen Z consumers, which the younger people out there, ultimately it's becoming much more important to them in terms of their consumer choices. And they are ultimately going to be the people who have the largest spending power and take over the wealth in years to come. So a lot of companies are positioning themselves now to take advantage of that. And that's great for the future, because obviously as people become more mindful of this, it can only be positive in terms of outcomes for future generations. And then a little bit of the kind of idealistic in terms of sustainable development. ESG is about people, prosperity, peace, partnerships, and planet. So it really is all encompassing. And I want to just keep stressing in that it's looking at every aspect of your business and how you can be better. And of course, If you do that, it's only going to strengthen your brand. It's going to help you to win more clients, and you're going to be putting yourselves, ahead of competition. Some further benefits. So yeah, I don't want to read. I don't want to death by PowerPoint, but there's some great things that come out of it. So finding your purpose and making your company purpose driven. There's tax advantages to be found, waste reduction, increase employee retention. As I'm sure you know, more and more people are actually putting ESG and sustainability up there in terms of choosing the companies they want to work for. So I mean, I could talk all day about the benefits of taking ESG seriously and managing your ESG reporting in the best possible way. And then finally, so what I want to talk about in terms of the certifications and the management piece today is embedding this in the kind of DNA of your company. The more you do that, rather than just making a sort of a nod to it, say, yes, we're going to do this because it's going to help us to achieve X. If it actually is embedded within the kind of company, the foundations of your company, then that's how you really get the most out of it. So it's about finding those people within your business who are passionate about it. Incidentally, a lot of the people that I help companies to go through B Corp certification or to get ESG ratings, and 9 times out of 10, the people I'm working with are the office managers in the company, because they are the kind of, they do everything. They wear many different hats, but they also understand the company very well. They know about all the different policies that are in place. They have access to all of that information. So as well as working with the managing directors or the CEOs who need to be the decision makers on a lot of things, the office managers are actually the people I have calls with week in, week out, going through a B Corp assessment or going through ESG ratings, because they are quite often the people who are assigned that task if there is not a dedicated in-house sustainability manager. So the key areas in terms of sustainability, a lot of these focusing on the environment, so your carbon accounting, circular economy, so that's trying to put everything back into a closed loop economy, minimizing waste and maximizing reuse. Getting your scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions, so it's important to understand where you are as a starting point, so getting yourself a baseline. If your company hasn't embarked on the journey of calculating your scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions, I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. But it's all about getting your environmental management systems in place and you're adhering to the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, which is the EU initiative to encourage companies to manage their ESG. So why is carbon accounting important? I'm sure we all know the reason why. The climate change is an ever-pressing issue. If you follow science-based targets, then we all need to do our part as businesses to measure what we're doing in terms of our carbon output, and then come up with a plan and carbon reduction plan to mitigate what we're doing. This becomes more and more important as we move forward, if you deal with large corporations, there's regulations coming in down the line which essentially say that you don't just look at what you're doing yourselves, but you have to look at your entire supply chain when you're calculating your scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions. Because if you're selling a product service to anyone, essentially what you're doing is selling them carbon from your own supply chain. So that's why it's extremely important to measure, understand how you can reduce, and have a plan in place. So when you're going for new business, you can actually outline that to your prospects, to your clients, to your stakeholders, and certainly going to put you in good stead. So just understanding, if you don't know what scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions are, so your scope 1 is what you directly produce. Scope 2 is your indirect sources, so emissions created from the electricity that you use and so on. And your scope 3 emissions, which are usually, well, always actually the largest amount of your emissions, are the upstream and downstream emissions. So they are slightly out of your control, but there are ways and means which you can audit your supply chain and engage your suppliers in order to help reduce them too. So if everybody worried about their scope 1 and 2 emissions, then we wouldn't have to worry too much about scope 3 because they would naturally be coming down. So this is what that looks like. So your scope 1 and 2 are usually about 10% of what you're responsible for in terms of your emissions. Your scope 3 are usually the much larger portion. They're a lot harder to calculate because there are many elements which are out of your control. But what we do with companies is work with them to provide the most accurate calculations possible. So that's a very brief intro to a very complex and broad topic. But just moving on to what you can do as office managers to start contributing and to do your bit in terms of your ESG management. So first thing is to implement sustainable practices, obviously, around your own. So keep your own house in order. So whether that be recycling programs, using sustainable suppliers, reducing paper usage, going digital, putting in energy efficiency measures around the office. There's plenty of things that you can do. And if you ever need any help or further tips on these kind of things, please don't hesitate to get in touch. Be happy just to provide, go on a call and just discuss what you can do in your particular circumstances. Monitoring and reporting, so tracking the company's environmental impact. You can't put a plan in place to reduce if you don't know what you're doing in the first and foremost. So the first thing to do is to do a baseline audit, find out what your company's impact is, and then you can put a plan in place to keep on monitoring and make reductions. And then if you do annual reports, if your company is already doing a sustainability report, that's great. If you're not, I suggest that you start looking into this. And it's not just about your environmental impact, of course, but all the great stuff that many businesses are doing in terms of social impact, becoming purpose-driven businesses. It's all included in your ESG reporting. So putting your hand up in the office or with your manager just and saying that it's something you'd like to be a part of, I think it's a really interesting thing to be a part of, because what could be better than helping your company to have a more positive impact? The third thing is creating a culture of responsibility. So quite often the office manager is some of the people who are responsible for creating that sort of office environment, that culture. So it's about being that champion within your business and prioritizing ESG, organizing training sessions. We can help you guys with that if you ever need to set something up. But if it becomes at the forefront of everybody's sort of consciousness, then that's the way to maximize it and to make sure that you're going to get maximum benefit out of responsible ESG management. Then stakeholder engagement. So there's no point looking at ESG as a completely internal, inward-looking operation. It's all about engaging with your stakeholders, so understanding what is important to your clients, to your managers, to your customers, to your employees. It's really about communicating. Every business is different. We operate in different sectors. We have clients with different needs. So if you can understand what your clients, what's important to them, that may involve doing something which is called a materiality assessment, which is where you sit down, have a workshop, and essentially iron out what are the issues that are important to us as a business. Once you have that as understanding as a foundation, then you can really start to develop your ESG strategy so that you are doing it in a way which is going to be relevant to you. Really, there's no point in focusing on carbon reduction if you're a one-man, like a consultant, so a digital consultant. Your carbon footprint is going to be absolutely minimal. So it's about finding out what's important to your clients and taking it from there. Then supporting ESG communication. So be available to assist in the preparation of reports, learning about ESG, understanding why it's important and how it should be communicated. Companies like Floworks and my partners at ESG Pro are there to assist in exactly that kind of thing. But it all has to come from, essentially it comes from internally within your business. You can be guided down this, we can help you guide you down this journey, but a lot of the reporting comes from within. And then utilizing it to enhance your corporate image. So doing all of this stuff is great, it's important, but there's also benefits to promoting it via, whether that be via social media channels, via newsletters on your website. If you get certified, if your company is interested in becoming a B Corp, for example, there is a huge amount of benefit in terms of promoting that to your clients. And certifications and compliance. So I'm going to move on to this in a second, just to speak about IQ ESG, which is our own ESG rating, which has been developed based on the GRI framework, and also B Corp certification, which is one that I work on with a number of companies. And I'm sure many of you have heard of it. I'm just going to outline what's involved in that very quickly, and then move on to IQ ESG. But finally, the whole point of ESG is that it's about continuous improvement. So it's about understanding where your company is at the moment, what impact you're having, where you would like to go, how you would like to improve your positive impact, and then putting a plan in place to get there. So no company is going to be, absolutely fantastic from day one. Everyone's at a different point along their journey. So it's about taking that look at yourself and planning your ways and means for continuous improvement. So to wrap it up, ESG is about a single point of reporting on environment, and social and governance. And I'm just going to touch now on some certifications which can really help you to guide your ESG reporting and your strategy. Okay, so B Corp. B Corp, in my opinion, is the gold standard of sustainability certifications at the moment. It's been around since about 2007. There's over 12,000 B Corps now worldwide. 2,000 of them are in the UK. That number has more than doubled in the past 18 months. So the demand to become B Corps is ever growing. They're taking on bigger clients, large corporations. You may have seen the likes of Nestle. They have the B Corp certification mark on their Nespresso products. They originally started out focusing on SMEs, but they're now taking on much larger companies. And I'm all for that, because you can't maximize impact without taking on the big players in the market, really. So how you get there is by the B impact assessment, which is a very rigorous assessment process. It's all done online. Typically, you do need a consultant to guide you through that, because a lot of companies will do it for the first time and they'll score around 50 points. There's 250 points available, but you need a passing score of 80 to get through. Typically, we try to target getting around 95 on your first assessment. And how we do it is you take you through the assessment, see what your company is doing right now, and then we set a roadmap into, okay, these are the things you need to implement over the next 6 to 12 months in order to become a B Corp. The whole process usually takes about 12 months. And there is an annual certification fee, which is paid to B Corp, which is based on your revenue as a business. So if you want more information on that, please feel free to contact me separately. But I'm just going to speak about IQ ESG. Oh, sorry. But in terms of B Corps as well, if you don't know already, there are a number of benefits. You become part of the B Corp community. Typically, B Corps have a 26% annual turnover growth compared to the national average of 5%. If you're a B Corp, people are starting to understand very quickly what it all stands for, what that certification mark means. So in terms of attracting talent, employee retention, all of that kind of stuff, engagement in diversity, it's very attractive for people to work at B Corps. And there are a huge number of benefits. You become part of the B Corp community, which is they have lots of events annually. They have B Corp months, so you have just access to a lot of great stuff. So finally, onto IQ ESG. So this is again, it's a certification mark. It's an ESG rating. So what we do is look at your company. We've taken the GRI framework, which is the same framework which the B Corp assessment is based on, but we've stripped it back, broken it down into kind of understandable, easy to read English, and made it a lot easier. And I've just seen a typo there on my slide. I apologize for that. But yeah, it's basically a much simpler, it's entry-level ESG, and it's, if you haven't started your sustainability journey already, this is a great way to get started. It's taking away a lot of the kind of the fluff and the marketing, which is surrounded with a lot of the certifications. and it's simplifying for everybody. So how does it work? Basically, it's an online assessment that we've listened to a lot of our clients, and I've worked with a number of companies to go through B Corp now, which is extremely time consuming. We have weekly calls. It takes 3 to 4 months to get through the assessment. So if you're in a position right now where you're wanting to do more in terms of ESG and sustainability, but you're not sure how to do it, this is a really great starting point for you, because going from kind of zero to hero, going from nothing to becoming a B Corp is a really big jump. So if you do IQ ESG first, within 6 to 12 months, you actually get the rating within 16 weeks, and it includes your scope 1 and 2 emissions. And then there's also an improvement plan which comes along with that, which outlines the things you can do as a business to improve. And after you get recertified after 12 months, and you will see an improvement in your ESG rating at that point. After that period, you can then say, okay, we want to go to the next level. So we want to become a B Corp now. You will be well set up to take that next step and go through the B impact assessment. But if you don't have a lot of the ESG and governance things in place from the get-go, that assessment can be really taxing and quite time consuming. So I'd highly recommend as entry level to go into IQ ESG. It's very intuitive. How it works is just an online platform where there's 8 sections. You upload some data, some policies, so information about your business, how you're structured, your diversity, a whole range of different topics. And we then send that away for verification, and that verification is completed by a company called Apex Analytics, and they are internationally recognized standards body. So you get, if you're involved in any kind of with organizations such as the NHS, for example, where you need to be on the NHS Evergreen suppliers list, this certification will qualify you to get onto that suppliers list, and along with many others. The result is you get a certification which grades you in terms of your ESG, so your environment, social and governance score. It's scored from A to D, a bit like a school report, and you get your ESG rating certificate. Like I said, if you can go through the actual assessment process in a few days, and you can have this ESG rating within 16 weeks. Includes that scope 1 and 2 emissions, your action plan for improvement, and then a full year of access to improve your rating. So you can, once you're signed up, you can contact us if you want any guidance on how you can improve, but also access to some learning events. And there's actually we've launched this on June the 1st. So there is currently a 30% discount offer, which is running until the end of June. And I'll put some information about that in the Slack group after this. But in terms of pricing, like I said, it's extremely affordable. So these are one-off costs, which you pay annually. It's based on how many employees there are in your business. So for very small micro SMEs between 1 and 10 employees, we're talking around £900, which compared to the likes of Planet Mark and B Corp, it's extremely affordable. Like I said, it takes 2 to 5 days to complete. We can support you through that. And it really is a great, quick and easy way to kind of understand where you are at the moment. And then, yeah, like I said, get that improvement plan as to where you want to go. Just a few of our clients. So ESG Pro are my partners. They are a certified B Corp as well. We work with companies from all shapes and sizes. So small cleaning and laundry companies, right up to large investment banks and big corporates worldwide. And then so we also provide beyond that, like I said, IQ ESG is entry level a rating service, so that's really great to start your sustainability journey. But if you are a bit further along the road and you want support in terms of carbon neutrality or fully comprehensive annual sustainability reporting, then please get in touch and we will be able to support you with anything that you need. So that brings me to the end. It's been weird speaking with one-way traffic, but I appreciate you all joining. If there's any questions at all, please feel free to ask.
I'm coming back on video, so you don't feel so it's a weird feeling, isn't it, when you've got no one there really responding.
Yeah, it's really
It's
strange.
yeah, it's
I
not
do
it's
Teams
not
calls all
comfortable.
day long, but when it's just you talking, it's very, very dry
Imagine
mouth.
recording an entire what have we done, 10 days of our course so far where you're just talking to yourself in a studio. It's really freaking weird and not nice. So yeah, I get it. I get the feeling. Right. On that note, does anybody want to interact with James? And I would encourage you to do so. There's a few minutes left. So please do ask any questions that you've got. If you don't want to come off mute, please use the chat and I will read them out on your behalf for him. I'll ask a question to start with. You've mentioned obviously about the process that you've created and launched, which is incredible, and looking at those prices, which I hadn't seen before now, it is so much more affordable because I've worked with Planet Mark and South Pole on behalf of clients before, and a small company that I was at for years, consulting with them for 5 years, they had up to 20 staff, and we paid something like £15,000 with South Pole.
Yeah.
How does that compare? So B Corp we know is like you say the gold standard. It's going to take a long time. It's a lot of money. There's a high chance that you're not even going to get the label once you've gone through the process anyway.
Yeah.
How does it compare to probably people have heard? I mean, just put hands up so we can get some interaction from you guys. Who has heard of Planet Mark as an example, or South Pole on the webinar? Yeah, a few of you have. Yeah, so how does yours compare to those and the processes? Clearly I can see the cost is hugely different, and if you're starting on this journey and you're in a smaller company, or I don't know if we've got any of our charity members on, but that, you know, there's a whole host of things here. People want to be more ESG conscious and aligned to it, but there's a cost. So yours could fit in so many of these businesses that can't afford the likes of B Corp and South Pole and things. But what are the other differences with those other two labels that I know of?
Well, it's a great question, and this is exactly why we came up with this, because a lot of those certifications are not accessible to all businesses and they're extremely hard to get. And yes, there is great benefits, but there's a huge cost as well. So this is really entry-level sustainability, but it's based on exactly the same frameworks, and it is internationally verified through Apex Analytics. So the vast majority of things that you want to achieve with your ESG rating, you will get by going through this service. It's in terms of like Planet Mark, for example, I don't like to speak too badly of anyone, but I'm not a huge fan because it's not actually a certification. They're looking at your scope 1, 2, 3 emissions and, you know, saying, okay, we are making a commitment to reduce it, but it's not a verified certification. So that's what I was talking about in terms of marketing. It's something you can put on your website to say we're engaged with this, but it's very expensive to pay for that, and actually you're not getting a fully comprehensive ESG score because you're just focusing really on one part of the problem. Yeah, so that was really the motivation for coming up with IQ ESG. It's taking exactly the same frameworks that the likes of B Corp are based on, but simplifying it and making it accessible for people, with the same outcomes. In that if you want to be on a preferred suppliers list, but you need to demonstrate what you're doing in terms of your ESG management, this is a really great starting point, because you're showing that commitment, that demonstrating to your stakeholders that we've looked at ourselves, we understand what we're doing as a business, and we understand where we need to go to improve. And that is, in a nutshell, what ESG is all about.
Yeah, love that. Heloise, did you want to ask it out loud, or would you like me to read it on your behalf?
No, I'm quite happy being noisy. That's fine. So we're getting we have an annual audit from our EMEA headquarters over in Sweden, and this year we've had a whole load of things that have come up that we've never had to report on before. So one of those is waste management measurement, i.e. how many bags of waste we're disposing of and the weight in kilos across a year. So any tips for how you can practically do that without physically sitting every single bag every day on a scale?
What type of business are you? Just
we're a software company, so our main product is non-tangible, but we've got an office in the UK which has got around 45-50 people in it, and we've got a kind of semi-canteen effect type place.
So you're just talking about your office waste, and so it's
It's
office
just the office waste, yeah.
food waste, essentially. Okay, so the best way is to contact your waste contractor, because they should be able to feed back data to you about what you've been. So if they know, they obviously know what bins they're providing to you. If you're in a shared space, it can be a bit more complicated, because if you're
We are in a shared space, yeah.
So really, I mean, without sort of weighing yourselves what you're throwing away, it's very difficult to to get very, very accurate data on that. But your waste, if you speak to your waste contractor and say, we need to do this in terms of our reporting, they have an obligation to help you in terms of what you're actually disposing of, because your waste management costs should reflect that. And if you're not directly responsible for dealing with your waste contractor, then go to your tenant or landlord, because they should be able to help you at that point too. There are also some great innovations out there which can help you to track your waste. So there's a company I work with called TrackerSack, who individually barcode waste bags and track them, so they can track the journey of waste from cradle to grave. So there's another option there, because they actually, in some of their settings, they have scales set up so that when a bag is being thrown away, you can actually scan it, put it on scales, and then it's going to give you very accurate. So if they're really, really keen to get very accurate data, there are other things that you can do. But yeah, as a starting point, speak to your waste contractor.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Because at the moment I've set up a grid which my cleaner fills in every day of how many general waste, how much recycling waste, i.e. paper and glass. And then so we're using that as a kind of starting point, but it's nowhere near what we've actually been requested of. So yeah, I'll take that back to my landlord. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, no problem.
Good. Joe, did you want to do yours, or do you want me to read it out?
No, I'm happy to. I'll put my camera on as well. Oh, you can't see me. Hold on. There we go. Hi. Thanks, James. So our HQ in France, we're an international company. They manage our reporting, so they gather the information from each individual country. The challenges we have faced is gathering information from our distribution warehouses. So have you got any tips?
So the good thing you can do with IQ ESG is actually use it as a kind of like a screening software. So essentially, so if there was scope to do that, you can actually set up licenses for your distribution houses, and they make it mandatory for them to complete the information that's in there. And we can actually come up with something which is bespoke for you. So if there's specific information you need to gather, we do supply chain audits and stuff all the time. So we're actually utilizing IQSG for that, so that we can send that out to loads of different suppliers and get back all that information that we need to within a set time frame. And if that becomes mandatory in order to remain as a supplier, or be part of the distribution network, then that's a great way to do it. And of course, it makes it much simpler if somebody has an online portal where they can just go and input the information quickly, rather than having to send you individual documents or information. So it's a great way to gather that information sort of quickly and easily. And obviously, like I said, we do, if it's a bit more complicated than that and you need more support, like we do supply chain audits, and we help companies to gather their information on a regional basis. So we work with companies that have many offices around the world, and some of them report on a regional level, some of them report internationally. So it's kind of just we'd need a bit more understanding of your context and what the information you need to gather. But yeah, IQESG can definitely support you in that as well.
Great, I'll take that back to the managing group on that then, and yeah, that's fantastic.
Sure,
Thank you.
If you want to set up a separate call anytime to look at that, then I'd be more than happy to do so.
Great, thanks, James.
Okay.
Super, thank you so much. Are there any other questions from anybody before we let James go? His details on the screen, so feel free to grab that. He is a partner of the portal, so if you're on Slack, James is on there. You can direct message him on the portal as well, or email, contact him directly by his phone number, etc. Hopefully that's been helpful, everybody.